Mike Kaminsky is by phone, Justin Knoll's here, and Dave Knoll's here. Town administrative present, the road superintendent, and one member of the public, and, Bob Martell will be, putting those, videos online with Linda Nickerson doing the download to YouTube and the town website. I have some old business here, gentlemen. Justin, if you wanna make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the 7 p.m. regular minutes of May 12th, 2022, as amended.
I'll second that. Motion been made, any discussion?
Nope.
Any discussion, Mike?
No, I think it's, just for the record, since I'm remotely, I technically cannot vote on anything that comes before the board of sixteen, I can only give input.
Yep, I'll second his motion, thank you for addressing that. Okay, motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 7:48 non-public from May 12th, 2022, as amended.
Aye, second.
Motion been made and seconded, any discussion on that one? Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
I think that was an aye from Mike. Okay, Justin, go ahead and hit the next one, I'll do the.
I make a motion to approve the 10 a.m. special meeting minutes of May 20th, 2022.
I'll second that motion, any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I'll make a motion to approve the 10:04 AM non-public meeting minutes of May 20th, 2022,
As amended.
as amended.
I second.
Justin seconds, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, motion. Motion's been read and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that part of the meeting's done, I'm gonna open up for public comment. Anything from the public right now, okay, I'll bring it back at the end of the meeting as well. Town business. You wanna read that, donation, Justin? Read
You
it
want me to
just,
read it right off here?
just as it says, yep.
Make a motion for RSA 31:95-B, Roman numeral 3B, to accept $593 donation from the Bell Memorial School students and faculty fundraiser for the welfare department.
Motion been made. I'll second his motion, any discussion?
No.
I would like to thank the, Bow Memorial School students, if, we could send a letter off to them and just thank them.
The welfare director is planning on doing that. but
Okay, she's
she-
doing one, that's fine.
Yeah, and she would like to clarify that, they would like to be able to spend that money.
I'd say it was
towards-
directly for them, so.
Okay,
I'm in agreement with that, everybody else in agreement with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, motion been made, and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That being said, we're a little ahead of time. We have a 10 PM public hearing on the road projects throughout the town. I'm gonna cover, a couple other items further on the agenda to keep going on that. I have a road contract here. I need to sign for advanced paving contract for phase 1 of our road projects. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign that. That looks like a lot of signs, huh?
You're important.
Oh, these are on the meeting minutes. Why don't we go ahead and sign them? Send them through. Get them out of the way. I'm getting rusty, I normally do these as I go. okay with Article 2 on there, Jeff? On October, November, December?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's typical.
Okay.
We don't, usually do anything that late anyway, it's just like a patch.
That 633, 160 is the amount that was calculated out earlier?
Those, we asked them to fill in the to be determined dollar amounts.
Yeah.
And Jeff, gave him instructions on that.
I guess to satisfy the attorney, they wanted some
Which is
some
about half the
parameters.
dollar amount, so it
Yeah,
works out.
some assess parameters to that. For how it makes, they did that. From my understanding, as part of the law process, I guess.
Yeah, it was the last piece for filing. Our application has been accepted, it's just a matter of the town attorney's review, make sure we have everything in place that we need.
We'll just submit that to them.
I'll scan that to them tomorrow. I actually have to scan it to our attorney, and he will forward it to the bond bank.
Okay. Mike, that contract's been signed, just so you don't left on the phone there,
Okay, that sounds great.
okay? We have a septage agreement with the town of Concord, that is normally set up, so that if one of the persons pumping, from our town and doesn't have a correct disposal area, they can go to the town of Concord and they'll accept the disposal of our septic from our town with the right paperwork. And so Lean has gotten this agreement through the town of Concord. And, I signed it previously this week when I was in, and Justin has signed it, so we should be able to send that off to the town of Concord with those two signatures on there.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with waiting till next week either, when Mike's in, if he wants to sign that too.
I have seen this routine, I have no issue with that at all, just set it up early.
Okay,
Yeah, so that'll go to DES and the city of Concord.
okay.
That's good for 10 years.
Yeah.
I have in front of me an agreement, for roadway construction, the extension of Zachary Drive.
Donna dropped that off at my office today, she said that had been discussed, during planning board meetings, signatures have been, received from all the planning board members, and, everyone is in agreement with the language that's there.
Okay. Justin and I both signed, Mike, I think that this one here does have your signature asked for on there, so if you're in next week sometime,
I do.
we'll go ahead and sign that one. And I think it's time now, we'll go back to the, it is 7:10, so we will go back to the meeting agenda and open the public hearing for road projects throughout the town of Dunbarton. We have the road agent present, and he'd give us some input on what he plans on doing this year on our road.
Stay right here, you want me to move to another area?
I think you're okay there.
Okay, sounds good, I like it here. Well, as usual, we'll do our routine maintenance throughout all the town roads, you know. Brush cutting, pothole filling, you know, washout repairs, you know, the typical day-to-day maintenance, picking up the dead animals, whatever else, you know, that occurs, and that happens on all the roads. Our big project this year, as we've been talking about, is using part of the bond money that was approved at town meeting, and the roads that are gonna get paved, so we broke that into, that dollar amount into 2-year project. And the 3 roads that we're gonna concentrate on this year are Robert Rogers Road, Twist Hill Road, and Gorham Pond Road. Gorham Pond Road from the town line to Route 13, we'll get a shim and overlay as needed. The same we have to do some other preparation to make ready for paving, you know, dig some shoulders back here and there and stuff like that, so we'll be taking care of that. The bond, as Lean mentioned earlier, is moving along well. It hasn't been finalized yet, but
Yeah, we did get, our application was approved, the only thing that's outstanding, and it should be within the next 2 weeks, that we'll know the actual rates that the board will accept, when those rates come in.
in my understanding, from talking with Lean, is it would probably be funded the end of July or first of August, perhaps.
It's the beginning of, July.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna be real quick, once we
Okay.
get the rates and the selectmen sign.
So that's great.
Yeah.
We weren't
I
really
think
sure.
on the day of the town meeting, we got a slightly reduced rate when they actually had all their bond
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah, and that, prompted the bond banks to shorten the application period. They originally said that the applications would due the end of April, and they asked anyone interested in applying for a bond to get their applications in by April 15th, so they shortened it by 2 weeks, so that they can have a final, total dollar number, and then they can go out and get
Get the bond rate.
the bids. for the
So,
bond.
so people know it may fluctuate slightly, because some towns probably didn't pass, some probably did. So they gave us a bond rate anticipating that they're gonna have all of these roads in and for different towns, and now our town will be one in the mix, obviously, so.
All right, well, so that's that, and I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
that's,
finalizing that part of it.
that's quite a bit of work you have to do to prep all
Yeah,
these.
yes, various things, yes, that's correct. That's what we're gonna work on first, so as soon as the bond money is available, we'll start paying those. The other project is kind of sizable, we're gonna work on Ray Road, running that up, and put some more gravel down, repave it. That comes out of our regular operating budget, under the road construction and maintenance side of it. It doesn't have anything to do with the bond part of it. It's a totally separate thing, but it's still within the highway department.
Is that gonna finish Ray Road after that?
Yes, the first coat. The thing we're fighting right now is like everybody else, the escalating costs of everything. You know, the diesel fuel, which fuels everything, the equipment, the supplies, the crushed stone, the gravels, the asphalt, and everything is pretty volatile this spring, as we know. So, we're gonna be having a pretty lean budget, I think, by the time everything is said and done, just due to the cost factors. We crafted our budget, you know, over about, well, not quite a year ago, 9 months ago, we had it approved. There's been significant changes in 9 months. We'll make it work. You know, make
And
sure
as I
it's-
said, we held every department to their toes
Yeah.
on budgets as
And,
well, so.
and everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
I mean, we're no different than anybody else. And everybody in their personal lives and town life and all that, so. It'll work.
One thing I wanted to mention, Jeff, which I think is a real important about these, roads, is after they are done being paved, the edges will
Yes.
be shimmed
Gravel will be placed on the shoulders.
and,
Yes.
and rolled, and so,
Yes.
to me, that holds up the edge of the roads huge compared to not doing that, and,
They're narrow roads too, typically, these roads we're talking about, they're a narrow road, and that protects the edge of the road.
Yeah.
And that's all part of the process, and the contractor that's doing the paving also does that part of it, all that stuff is sucked out of the town, is involved in that, other than overseeing what's going on. So it's not one of the tasks that we have to do.
and the only other thing I wanna mention is for people that weren't here for this road bond meeting, these 3 roads Jeff picked out aren't all in one side of town. They're mixed through the town, and the reason he picked them is they're approximately half of our road project, and the second half will be done next year, so. And looking at the footages, he wanted to make it kind of half and half to keep it even, and, I think it's working out well so far.
That's correct. And also, they're through roads that get a lot of traffic. Rogers Road, I think, is quite important now, because there's a great number of people that commute there with their kids back and forth to school. Now that we're tied in with Bo, and will be for quite some time, so, you know, give them a good ride and make it easier to maintain in the winter, so we can plow it more effectively and efficiently and all that, so it has pluses. So that's in the number wise, in the length, it all kind of played out, though, so wish list, but right out of the gate, the price of asphalt's gone up, so we'll have to revisit it next year. And maybe things will change, and we may have to, you know, take some operating money and add to it, or pare the project down a little bit, but this is the first phase of a two-phase project.
Okay.
And also, we have, we approved a subdivision, within the last couple of weeks on, Guile Hill Road. And the developer had to pay an exaction fee, which contributes money to the town, a portion of money to go to improving that road. So we have to do some improvements, we're obligated to do some improvements on, Guile Hill Road. And meet with the Conservation Commission, because it's a scenic road, get them on board with us, and it seems that everybody's on board, and we have to have some trees cut and all that. And 90% of that money will come from the exaction fee that that developer was assessed, but the town does have to still keep in a little money, so we'll be working on that road as things progress as well. The big substantial thing is cutting the trees, and again, that's nothing the town's gonna do, we will hire a subcontractor to do that. Cause they're large trees, near power lines, and you need professionals to do it, nothing, they're beyond us to cut.
Yeah.
So that's another facet, there's gonna be some work done on that. And also, the developer is obligated to do some road improvements to the frontage in front of his property. But that's all on him, his contribution there.
Yeah, but I know there's another development in front of the planning board that may end up the same time.
Same situation, but it's a little premature to
Yeah,
figure
might
out.
be
how-
later in the year or next year, but
Yeah,
you
it could be,
gotta keep it in your
yeah.
scope of work.
Yep, exactly.
So you're busy next couple of years here, keeping up with the
Yeah,
town's obligations on these new development roads, as well as
Yeah.
keeping our current roads going.
yeah, those are trying because they're narrow dirt roads, and, you know, they're, quite honestly, they're substandard. So we're bringing them up to some sort of loose standard, but we have two new developments that are in the process of being built by a developer now, Countryside Golf Course and an extension of Zachary Drive. The developer's footing the full bill on those, constructing the roads, paving them, and when he has done all the projects and all that part of the project, and they meet all the inspections and approval of the town, we will be taking them over and maintaining on a regular basis. The one at the golf course is over a mile, it's, I can't remember the exact footage, but it's like 6,800 feet, I think. And the extension of Zachary Drive is 1,250 feet. So that'll add to our,
Add some mileage to our roads.
yeah, it'll add to our road system. You know, fortunately, they'll be brand new and built to good specifications, so there'll be a limited amount of maintenance in the beginning for quite a period of time, we'll just have to plow it.
But that's still
But, oh yeah, it's an issue. Yep.
an issue, you gotta put somebody else on that road.
Yeah, exactly, it's gonna spread us a little more thin, or hopefully we can get some more people to help us. So, and like I said, that's pretty much it, other than any emergency that comes up, as always, you know, sometimes we have a failed culvert wherever in the town, or some storm damage, we've got off the hook. The last few years, we haven't really had much, just a little bit here and there, but that's always a potential as well.
Let's see if I can shut that off here.
So that's kinda it in a nutshell, I guess.
So just,
Unless anybody's got any questions or comments?
One question, David.
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I just wanna make sure the road aid's budget for this year, his operating budget is gonna be sufficient enough to do the routine maintenance, like, something comes up on the washout of the road or something like that. How does this current budget fit for just routine stuff?
He's still got all his money, he's done anything yet. No, I looked at it a few weeks back, it seemed okay still.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a, you know, we always hold some back for just in case toward the end of the year, Mike, as you know. But, you know, like I said, you still gotta go forward doing the work, and we have a certain amount of money, a limited amount of money, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
Okay, thank you.
In the past, when we've had some large emergencies, we've been fortunate enough to get, some assistance from FEMA. And that has offset the expense. Typically, they pay 75% of the, if it's declared a disaster, and, that always helps out. And we've actually gotten some money several times for that. So if it's a real large, widespread one, that sometimes happens, but
Mike, to answer your question,
Okay, thank you.
Lee just answered, it for us, he's about a third of the way into his budget,
Okay, great.
okay, so,
That's good to hear.
yeah. And I think Jeff wisely has been kind of holding off to see what he needs to do on these road projects to get them underway as well.
yeah, this spring, we were kind of proactive. We filled our salt shed with salt to get that expense out of the way, so we had that at the current price. That's full to start off the winter. Obviously, we'll need more as the time goes on, but that'll get us through the end of the year. And we've got sand screen and all that, so we've kind of got some of those items out of the way and paid for, so we know a little.
We all know what the prices, where the direction prices are going.
Yeah, yeah, so that stuff, we're in good shape there, going into the winter side of it.
Okay, being a public meeting for the roads, I'd like to bring it back to the public and the crowd and see if we have any questions we can address from the crowd.
Big crowd in here. I have some things I'd like to talk about, if some other people have some stuff for.
Go ahead, just state your name and address for the public.
Ron Slocum, Tenny Hill Road.
Okay, Ron, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
move down here and get someone can hear me on the phone.
Sure.
Okay. Nothing new, we've had a lot of these conversations. What? Am I in the way? I'll move over there.
I can't see what you're doing.
I get a good picture of the back of my head. So we've talked about dirt roads in the past, a lot of issues with those. I've been doing a lot of research, Jeff and I have had conversations, I've been in here before about them, about some possibilities we can do. And not just Tenny Hill, obviously I have a vested interest in that, because I live on a dirt road as well as many others in town do as well. And the research I've been doing, you've got kind of like a couple different approaches you can do with different roads to kind of maintain them and make them more livable. One is you can leave them alone, let nature take its course, and we know how successful that is working out from,
We've been doing that.
yeah, dry season to mud season to ruts and swamps and everything else. For dust control, this is the second thing you can do, treat them with calcium. I know Jeff has done that periodically on the roads, and that works until rain comes, and then you gotta do it again. It becomes just an ongoing maintenance nightmare trying to get out there, and you end up, to do it right, you have to do it weekly, which gets a little prohibitive. A lot of research I've been doing, and I've shared some materials with Jeff in the past, and I want to just bring it up, is there are some other chemical agents that are environmentally friendly that you could put down that bind with the dirt itself and last for more than a rainstorm. They're rain tolerant. They can last almost a whole season to use for dust control. There's been a lot of federal studies, a lot of state studies, a lot of recommendations out there for those. And there's quite a list of products that you can use for this. They usually get mixed with water, spray them down on the road, and you leave them, they're good for like 2-3 months. And they don't hurt cars, they don't hurt the environment, they don't wash away with the first rainstorm, and they're good for dust management and surface management of the roads. Some of the other things I came across recently, which is another level, is binding agents that you mix in with the top layer of the road. It forms a hard surface on the road, using dirt. It's not pavement, it's not asphalt, and they last at least a year. And you don't even need to regrade the roads if you do this stuff. It just leaves a hard surface and stands up to have pretty good traffic for a lot of our roads.
Did you look into cost of any of it?
Yeah, I've been doing some investigation of that. They get a little more costly, mainly in the application of it, because you need to redo the surface layer and mix this stuff in with the surface layer. You don't have to roller it, you just have to leave it there, and it cures in, about half a day. Then you can resume normal use of it. Obviously, the best option would be full-blown pavement, but we all know that there are a lot of Our dirt roads are not in condition that they could be paved easily without extensive work. I know, for example, like even Tenny Hill Road, if we were to pave that, Jeff, what would you think? Are we talking 6 or 7 digits if we had to redo that road alone?
6 for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, with all the, because you'd have to do the same thing we're doing on some of these other roads. You've got some winding areas, because you want a certain width for the pavement. So I'm not recommending that by any means. I'm not coming to the board to ask for that. Yeah, I'd like to, but buy a lottery ticket, and if you would enough money, maybe.
Yeah, I know it's come up before, and some other people have bought, like Ordway Road came up one year and got denied at the
Yeah.
town meeting, and some other, times it's come up, I know, before in the past. I do think in our master plan, there is a note or something that the, you know, that the dirt roads is part of the character of the town as well, so.
Oh, yeah.
Even that said, I would like to have my road tire as well. During mud season, it is mud season.
Well, on Tenny Hill, it's a mixed bag because it's dirt now, and granted, yeah, it's a scenic road, but it was scenic 100 years ago when there were no trees along it. That was the whole idea, it became scenic. Right now, it's not a scenic road. You can see out beyond the road in, I think, 2 spots, and one of them you get a great view of the power lines. So.
I thought scenic was for those nice trees along the road.
No, they were actually declared scenic roads before the trees grew
Oh,
up.
really? I don't know what year they were
Yeah.
made scenic roads.
But anyways, yeah, and you get into a catch-22 with some of these dirt roads. I can speak firsthand for Tenny. If people drive like loony bins down there now, I don't know what good the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs do, especially at the end of the road like Grapevine. You gotta drive half a mile down the road before you can see it.
Yeah.
By then it's too late. I don't know who put the sign that far down the road, should have been at the beginning. But,
Like you said, it doesn't matter where. it
yeah,
is.
and even though it says 25, I see little trucks, big trucks, cars. By the time they get back to my house, they're doing a hell of a lot faster than 25.
It's not just dirt roads, they do them on the tire roads as
Yeah.
well, so.
And so if we paved it, it would be even worse. So, I'm not advocating for that. The reason I'm here is, I would like to continue the study. I know I gave Jeff some product materials a few years ago. With more products out there in the market, I would like to work with Jeff and anybody else you on the select board would like, to do a little further research into some of these things and see, are there viable options besides just the calcium treatment? Look at some of, I brought a lot of them along for samples, write-ups on a lot of these materials that I can share with you and leave off for looking, but look at some of these, see if they might work.
Well, Mike's not here, I'd like to sign Mike on this.
Yeah, we can sign him on.
Yeah, we can vote on that, he can.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research, and there's a lot of material out there. Like I mentioned, there's a 50-page study that was done by the feds, highway departments, and some other states have come up with programs that they've recommended for maintaining their dirt road stuff. Some of them involve using these and other mitigation stuff. I'd like to just spend some time, helping with the research, spending time with Jeff or whoever, and see is there something we can do here.
I don't think the research hurts, and maybe one year we get to a point where we can do a little test study on just a little section to see if it actually
Yeah.
works, or if it's like.
Yeah, I think I threw that on the table once before to Jeff, and I'm still willing to do that, buy a 5-gallon bucket of some of this stuff.
I think the
Spread it.
last thing you promoted was monkey snot.
Yeah.
What you called it.
Gorilla Snot was one of the
Yeah, I
products.
know.
They've got another one out
I'd
here.
to
They
see
got-
that get off the ground.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of these other ones now. That is in the list. I included it here because they still make it.
Yeah.
And I included a bunch of other products. A couple of these products are more the level 4 that I talked about, which is you mix these in with your surface and they form kind of a hard layer. They're not just a binding agent. They actually restructure the surface to make it a hard, tacky kind of a road.
I think Silent, that was ahead of his time, that's how we used to make our tire roads.
Oil and sand.
Yeah, they said, don't use crankcase oil. It said that in large print in one of the studies I read. So, that's what I'd like to do, and my offer still stands with Jeff. If we come up with a couple of these things that we wanna look at, I got no problem buying a 5-gallon bucket of one of these things if you think it's worth trying and throwing it down in the front of my road, just to see,
You're more than welcome to do any of that you'd like to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things. I'd like the product to be something that you guys review and recommend, as opposed to me just choosing it. And 2, I'm not assuming liability if somebody driving on the road and throws a complaint, hey, what's this on the road?
I'd be in favor of doing a pilot project as suggested.
Do you have that stuff electronically? you could send
Yeah.
it to us, we could use
Yeah,
this.
I can do that too, I've been bookmarking all these things in a folder so that I can keep track of them, so. Yeah, I wasn't about to print the 50-page government study.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
know,
I
all
can
the
send it.
product info,
Yeah,
you have that in email, I'm getting that, send it to Lean and she can forward it
Yeah.
to us.
yeah, I can do
I'll
that.
read it in my.
I can leave these right now for Jeff if you wanna look at them, or,
I'll
The,
be, oh, you guys have.
Yeah, the only thing is, you know, a lot of this stuff sounds good, but it requires specialized equipment.
well, that's what I wanted to find out.
You know, if it does, we're stretched pretty thin on equipment as it is.
Well, not just on equipment, I know that at least for
Manpower
this
as
year,
well.
I know with our road bond going on these next 2 years, I know their budget is gonna be stretched to the max, cause you have to prep for all them roads and work on other roads that they've already committed to in town, so I think that at least over the next 2 years, unless we get a big influx of, revenues coming into the town that we can throw towards it.
Sure, well, that's what I'm saying, and Mike chimed in on that too, I've got no problem if, you know, if you can look at one of these or two of these and say, yeah, let's give that one a try. I've got no problem footing the bill, I'll go buy the 5-gallon can myself and mix it with the water and spread it around in an area and try it out. I've got no problem absorbing that, and then, yes, we can do exactly what Jeff is talking about, find out, how do you apply this in mass? If you gotta get one of these sprayer tanks, you know, or whatever else, and see how much that could end up costing, and also multiply that out by the number of roads and number of areas we have to do this. I'm not recommending treating the whole road, you can probably do it within a, you know, certain footage of wherever the houses are, and the rest of it, leave it alone, kind of a deal, so I don't know, you know, cause like on my road, there's few and far between where the houses are, at least on one end. I don't know how some of the other roads are, so you wouldn't have to end up treating the whole distance of dirt roads. I know Guile Hill that we're talking about, yeah, we're doing a lot of road work there, and there's only houses in certain sections, and you do get a little denser in another area, but.
You know, one of the things, the older roads, people used to put their houses real close so that they could get plowed out and have access in the winter, and unfortunately, as we become more busy, those houses are sitting right on the roads. Even Kelsey, where we have a couple right on the road, and it's gonna be a dusty mess for them with increased traffic.
Well, and that's the other thing, traffic's increased dramatically
Oh, yeah.
around here, you know, just not only the development on the dirt roads, that just people passing through town, going around wherever, going to the dump, or going to the
Some
store.
shortcuts,
Shortcuts.
like when I used to live on Ordway Road, that was the biggest shortcut I feel in town beside the road.
I mean,
People were jetting through there all the time.
every year we put crushed stone on roads throughout the town, spend thousands of dollars doing that.
Sure.
As they get muddy, and that's the most, effective way to do.
I will say the dirt roads this year bound up nice after you put that little bit of stone, they really.
You never know what you're gonna get with the spring, wasn't that bad a spring this year. I think part of the problem that we've been having the last few years is the type of winters we've had. You get a layer of ice, and then you have a rainstorm that comes up, and you get like a layer of water, and then it freezes on top of it. And then you get like 6 inches of icy, wet sand and gravel.
I know it well.
And when the frost first comes out, it takes a little bit for that to go away, and then it starts to dry up. And it used to be, it was just snow and ice, and you put a little sand on it, it would work, but these rainstorms and this thawing in the middle of the winter is very problematic.
So the chief had a question,
Yep.
you good? Fred, you had a question?
I got a couple questions, you don't need the answers tonight, but, how long after you apply this before traffic can go on, before it doesn't get destroyed?
Yeah, that's part of the research I'm doing. Some of these you can drive them right away.
Yeah.
Some of these ones where you have to put them down and it's more of a road surface conditioner
Yeah.
and a hardener, if you will. Those, they recommend 24 hours before it's cured. That doesn't mean you probably can't drive on it. I wouldn't drive an 18-wheel truck on it
Yeah.
that first 24 hours, but for local car traffic, and that's part of the research that we need to do, is dig into that a little further, because that will obviously be a big impact as well.
What about, you start applying and all of a sudden we get a cloud burst? Would that affect the hardness of that, or?
That we need to research,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, because obviously we wanna look and,
The springtime frosties?
yeah,
This is that.
And a lot of these tests aren't done in New England,
right,
they're done in the Midwest and stuff, and
yeah,
things are flat, and they don't necessarily work as well on a
Yeah.
grade, because momentum spin and it tears the road, so.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to see how effective they are. A lot of times there'll be a stuff, a little note that not as effective on more than a 5% slope. or something
Right,
like that.
Maybe that's something, when you are.
I mean, that's all part of, I get that, that's all part of the research.
Yep.
But that would be something you'd wanna look at too, and like Fred was mentioning, it is New England, and
Oh, yeah.
I would say it's definitely differently.
Oh, I agree completely, yeah, these are the kinds of questions.
If it has to be mixed in with a layer of gravel every year, I mean, we can't add 6 inches to
Well,
every,
yeah, that's the
every
other
year,
thing.
you know, you're
Typically, what our roads are built out of are cobbly gravel from years ago and
Mhm.
clay.
Yep.
And we've been adding, over the years, every road agent has added some amount of gravel on, some places more than others, but that gets washed away and worn away when you plow it and grade it and everything
Oh, no,
else.
I hear you.
So you gotta, when you say mix it in, like Justin just said, sometimes to prep that, you have to add a good layer of mixable material.
Yeah, that's.
So I mean, it's all good, and it's a good thing to look into, and, you know, if we could cure the dust problem, that would be great, but there are,
Yeah, that's
there's a lot
fine.
of
same
aspects
thing,
of it.
every time you
Yeah.
add height to the road, you gotta fix drainage swales and everything like that, so.
Yeah.
But, whatever, I mean,
Something.
we can do it.
That's my personal, I was leaning
Yeah.
more towards the binding agents, the polymers that just bind with the surface stuff and just let water let them soak into the surface, as opposed to these surface reconditioning agents that now you've gotta mix in the top
Exactly.
4 inches of
Labor
layer
intense, yeah.
and either re-gravel it or you loosen up everything you got, mix it, put it back down. That would be extremely labor intensive to do that kind of stuff, and I would just present it as, say, there's an option that's a layer between treating the road and paving it. You know, for some, and it may be a mix, and maybe some roads you do one way and some roads you do another, a different way. So I would just, you know, offer my time to help, you know, however you wanna organize this and do some official research into this kind of stuff, take a little further than what I've done, and, you know, volunteer to serve as a test case and try some of these out, and see if any of them won't, you know, bear standing, you know, exactly with the conditions that Jeff and Fred mentioned, is there may be things that, can I put it down now, how long before I can drive on it, how long before this, will it hold up under these conditions? And, you know, do it ourselves in a test case instead of, reading the studies is great, but, you know, we're not the same as some of these places that have done it.
And of course, the key is to make sure it's environmentally safe.
That's the whole thing.
I mean, cause we talk about using the calcium, it's still a salt, it's not good for the environment.
It's not good on the cars or
Yeah,
anything.
I mean, there's a
you know.
lot of drawbacks with that. It is very effective for dust control, we've used it for years, and that's why we do a limited amount of it.
Any more questions from the public on the road issues? On the public hearing? Okay, that being said, I'm gonna bring it back to the board. Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to say on, as far as the road, hearing goes?
No, I thought it was, really the blind, kind of like the thunder on the hearing for tonight, was the blind kind of delays, the path we're gonna follow for the next 2 years.
Right. Okay, Justin, do you have anything else?
No.
And town administrator, you're good with everything for the bond?
Yeah.
Okay, I've signed that contract, and, I think Mike will be in next week to finish up his signature. Jeff, we have a couple other items on the agenda, if you could stay, is that
Yep.
okay?
No problem.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing in reference to the road projects then.
Okay, thank you.
I'll send you electronically information on this stuff.
I'd like to thank everybody that attended for that road portion of it. Do you have some, Fred?
You know, public hearing,
I just closed the public hearing for roads.
no, I meant for the.
Oh, I will open it up again right at the end here.
You hear so much on TV now about the schools and stuff.
Yeah.
I just wanna say, there's some good news out there too, is that, last week, the 2 sixth grade classes from the elementary school came over with the teachers to help Leonardo put the flags out there for the veterans.
Yeah.
In the Center Cemetery, and they're very, very respectful of the graves and everything else, and they're very well behaved. The school deserves a kudo for that, you know. They did a
Awesome.
good job.
Okay, thank you, Fred. And for the record, that's Fred Mullen. Address, Fred?
Stark Lane, 14.
Okay, 14 Stark Lane, Dunbarton, New Hampshire. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.
news doesn't hurt now and then. I have another, item on the agenda. Mike, this is the last one, so you know, on the main agenda. This is the review, the request from Pat Pansiaco for Unitil regarding moving the telephone poles on Kelsey Road. And I read through it, Mike, just to see, because what I wanted to make sure is that, we have another attorney kind of speaking, kind of in behalf of the town. And I think it's my suggestion that before we contact Unitil, we should give this package to our town attorney to review. Just to make sure that we're coming off of the right way as far as, any requests from Unitil, to make sure it's coming from our board and not from another attorney.
Okay, Dave, I'd like to speak to that.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I have contacted Unitil. I just made a preliminary contact with them.
Yeah.
I reached at the very top of the government relations. They were cordial to me. I shared that letter with them, based on a recommendation of a few members of the planning board. I elected not to pursue, attorney at this point, wanted to have permission from the, I didn't have any consensus from the board yet. So I decided to keep it low key first, to save the town potentially some dollars.
Okay.
Right now, it's under review at Unitil level.
Okay,
And thing is, they've reached out to me, and, they've identified a person who's gonna be working the issue. They've asked authoritatively who can speak on behalf of the town for the exact placement of the poles as required. We're talking about 4 poles. I gave I shared the name of the, road agent. I said, he's our subject matter expert on this one. And if I start getting lip service, that's where I wanna get at least a consensus on the board to move forward and use our lawyer if we have to.
yeah, well, the thing that I didn't like about the application letter that, was sent in, at the meeting, there was talked about 9 poles. In this letter, in the first paragraph, it talks about 3 poles, and the second paragraph talks about a single pole. And then when you go to their first map, exhibit A, there's 5 poles delineated on that map.
Yeah, and then I saw that right off in the maps, okay? The maps delineate virtually the poles that were on the maps. They really, and what we're talking about is 1 pole in the middle of the potential turnaround, and the first 3 poles, which are on the wrong side of the road.
And the,
Really just clearly, shall I say, he knows exactly which poles need to, are going to be required to be removed. So I expect Unitil to reach out to him. My
And then-
fingers are crossed. This potentially, although it's a last minute, revelation by the applicant and his attorney, it potentially could save the town on a ratio of 2 to 1, a ratio of savings coming back to the town. The applicant will save on the exact fee, and the town will essentially receive a double whammy savings. And that's why I'm kind of like aggressive in pursuing this right now.
yeah, and I agree with pursuing it, Mike, if you look at exhibit B, they've highlighted the placement of the new pole, not the old pole that needs to be moved. I mean,
Exactly.
These-
I saw it right off.
these exhibits should have been reviewed before we send them, because if you read through this, it almost looks like we're requesting something and it's not correct. And I hate to go off on the wrong
And
foot
that's
as
why,
a selectman.
that's done based on, just a pure paper study or letter. It will be done with coordination with our road agent.
Okay,
And that's why I insisted on when I chatted with them as late as this morning.
And how's this gonna be done, by site visit or something? Not just over the phone?
They have met with the road agent already, Jeff already, with a site visit, but, the exact placement of the 3 poles at the very front and at the turnaround, it has to be done with coordination on site with the road agent. There's no, they cannot go up there and just assume anything. And that's my, shall I say, that's my line in the sand. It's gotta be done in coordination with the town road agent. And Jeff's in the audience right now, so,
yeah, that's why I asked him to stay for this.
yeah, I think he would definitely agree with me. That is, to move any poles at this time without coordination with the town is foolish on their part.
Yeah, I think you're right there. The part I want to follow up with Mike is the fact that, you know, the whole board hasn't looked at this, and I thought there should have been a letter from our board to Unitil not using this one, but it's kind of done now, it's over with now, cause you've already approached them.
Now, the thing is, I would say, in the event that Unitil gives us lip service here,
Yeah.
I would ask the board, well, I would at least, come to the select board, should we write our own letter with our own attorney? That's something I like to have our attorney give an opinion on, if they give us lip service.
Right. I just wanna make sure Unitil knows that this letter isn't coming direct from our select board, and the reason why that is, they're stating in here, you know, that, our fire department and our road agent said it's one of the worst roads in town. But when they spoke to that, I believe they were talking about the road surface and the ledge, not so much the location of the poles, and that's what I don't think they were talking about the location of the poles when they stated that, so.
Oh, I understood, and the thing is, they came back to me, the Unitil came back to me and asked, one question, is this being driven by the applicant, or is it being driven by, who's in the driver's seat here? And I clearly stated, it's the road agent and our planning board, driving agents for making the improvements to the road.
Which, I'll ask Jeff this question now, if we weren't having a building application in front of us, not a building application, but a subdivision application, would we be touching the poles on the road at all?
One, potentially, cause it's in a turnaround area that's been under dispute for a number of years.
Yeah.
And, the way things are going, it could solve a problem, that's been part of the problem, is that telephone pole is in the middle of the turnaround area, which is very problematic. I met with a guy, Gary Raymond, out there, I told him the gist of the job, and how it came about was the applicant applied at the planning board on the road agency input and the highway department about what needed to be done minimum to make the road safer and more usable for a 6-lot subdivision. And we collectively, as the planning board, have been using a 18-foot formula for the width of the road with a 2-foot shoulder on each side. And to meet this, these poles we're talking about would have to be moved at a minimum. There actually could be a couple more that need to be moved. So that's the driving force behind it. The subdivision is the driving force, but to get it, that requirement, we want work needs to be done. There are some other complications with the project, such as ledge and things like that need to be removed. To me, I think this is a lot of wrangling back and forth. I think this is a simple question. Do you move them for free, or is somebody gonna pay for it? And then the attorney for the applicant had indicated that they didn't have the correct licenses for the poles in the town. I don't know if that's correct or incorrect, I have no idea, I know nothing about it. So, I don't really think it makes much difference on where the pole is gonna be really located, it's like, are you gonna do it or not do it?
Okay, well, we'll go down this path, Mike, until we see what you come back with, from Unitil.
Right,
And
and the
then
thing is, if I could save the town some dollars by not getting legal involved, and let's say they do pay for it, then we're all sitting fat, dumb, and happy.
Oh, yeah.
However, if there's a problem, if there's pushback, I think we should at least go down the path of getting our own legal counsel here.
Yeah, well, I just didn't, if I send a letter or make a statement out from our select board, I like the information to be accurate, and this information is inaccurate in this letter that we've now provided to Unitil. That's the only problem I have with it. Other than that, I agree with
I
everything.
have the problems with that, Dave. I recognize the two attachments, I recognize immediately that the one in the turnaround, they actually identified the wrong pole, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I had a call out to their road agent, to the engineer of the applicant. He never really got back to me at all on that, so I didn't wanna wait, I wanna at least get a decision up or down from Unitil, which way we're gonna be heading.
Okay, I guess just bring it back to the board when you get that, and we'll kinda go from there as an entire board, cause,
That was my plan, so like, right now, we're still
the only other situation I can think of, if you drive around town, there are some poles right on the edge of the tar that actually are much closer than these poles.
Oh, for sure.
And so as a
That may
select
be-
board,
We
why-
may find a precedent, we may establish a precedent that when we find a very unsafe pole, we have mechanisms to move it at minimal charge to the town.
And that's why I think that, they're wondering about who's driving this, because, you know, it could become a major issue for them, so that's why I think they wanted
I
to know.
tell you, when I first called them, they said, we don't have any accounts in Dunbar, we're not in Dunbar.
Okay, I think we'll wait to hear back what you're gonna return to the board, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, David, but I wanted to make sure the board was aware of what was going on in the background. And, I expect them to reach out to Jeff Crosby, and just talk to him about the exact placement of the poles. And, even Ken Swayze, he said, 4 poles may be a no-brainer for them to take care of. But they never volunteered that when we first contacted them, and Jeff will attest to that.
Yeah, and like Jeff said, I think it may be more than 4, you got more up about the neighbor's property, you got more by the ledge up on the road, so I think there might end up being more than,
It's a starting point, though.
I know she said 9, I've counted at least 7 that look close to me, but like Jeff said, the road is a little bit narrower than our other roads, so maybe some will do work slightly.
Yep. So I'm being cautiously optimistic.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for our standard agenda. I just have mailbox items. This font is not gonna be readable for me. There we
It's
go.
7:14.
I'm about to 20 now.
Oh, no.
No, it's okay.
Never knew we were able to read buttons.
Oh, this is the big one here.
Don't worry, I'll get it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we just did some inspections, and some updates of our town pumps. We have a letter here from DS, Department of Environmental Services. There's a couple more deficiencies with our, diesel fuel pumps and capacities and our regular gas. And, looks like they're gonna give us some lead time and some time to, fix these items, but they're asking for a facilities manager signature. That looks like it's you, Jeff.
I guess.
And, so they're making us aware of some shortcomings and giving us some time to fix them. So we'll probably have to get some estimates on doing a rework on that to make it a little bit safer down there and, spill proof. And put it in next year's budget is what I thought is. Do you wanna sign it while you're here, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll sign it. You want me to explain it a little bit, or?
It wouldn't hurt, yeah.
We had our annual, every 3 years, so I guess it's triannual inspection for the pumps. We had to do some preliminary work, as you know, earlier in the year, to repair some issues that were, from the preliminary test that were muster. So that was all good, we thought we were in pretty good shape. So the gentleman came out from the state, the inspector, and he earmarked 2 items. The first being where you park your vehicles and fill them up, you need to have a concrete pad underneath the units. We have an asphalt pad now, and it has to be an impervious layer, so concrete's there. And then around the outside, you've probably noticed at gas stations, they have like a 4 little troughs, I guess you call it, and that collects any of the fuel that runs over it, and it typically just evaporates. It's not made for a giant oil spill, it's just that incidental leakage that happens. And the inspector was telling me that this is a thing that's been on the books at the state for a number of years. But for whatever reason, the powers to be, changing of the guard, they started to enforce it.
Got a new guy on there, huh?
Or whatever, I don't know what the driving force between, maybe it's some representatives in the state, I don't know what it is. But, that's the end of the story with that, it's something they chose to enforce. So I told him, I said, well, there's no way we can afford to do this this letter, and we have to respond within 30 days, it's basically acknowledging that we have a problem with it, and some sort of rough estimate of when it was gonna be done, and I gave him one, just talking conversation, well, the first chain of events next year, when the town crafts their budget, we'll, budget some money, and if it passes the town meeting, go forward. Glenn from Gold Eagle, does all the service work to the pump system and all that, is gonna figure out a, estimate of what it would cost to do this pad. Again, it's nothing, Pete and I aren't gonna do it at the highway department, it's kind of a technical thing. It's not really involved, they'd have to rip the asphalt out, do a little preparation, gravel, set up some forms and pour the pad. But you have to have the knowledge of how to do all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of it. The second part is, it's a thing through the fire marshal's office. Again, another thing that he told me, he's been on the books for a number of years, and something must have happened, and they decided to start enforcing it. Basically, it's a switch you hit that cuts the power to the pumps in case you have a fire. So that's a pretty easy thing, you just gotta interrupt the electrical service that goes to the pumps, go to this shut off, which is a push button, you just hit it, it cuts the power, and run a wire back. But it has to be done, all in conduit and all that, so there's a charge, you know, obviously electrician has to do it. The only caveat with that is, it can't be any closer than 20 feet to the pumps, and it can't be any further than 100 feet to the pumps. But we kind of the building over, and we had a good location by a door that would be easy to spot and all that, to put. And again, you'll figure out what that would cost us. And like I said, we have a grace period, they're not gonna shut us down or anything like that, we're gonna develop a plan. See where that goes. And I tried to get a ballpark, just so we could have something to argue about tonight, money wise, and he said, I'm not gonna give you any kind of price. I said, once again, as you know, being in the industry, they give us a price today, and it's not gonna be only good for so long. But we'll have a good idea of what it's gonna take to do the job. I have no idea how many thousands of dollars, but.
Okay, I guess.
So that's.
Later in the year, we'll get estimates, and maybe make it part of the budget.
Yeah, I figured you'll give us one, so we can have a discussion about it and get thinking that way, and try to figure out the budget season gets, how long, good the price is for.
And they give you a parameter of what that pad has to be, or?
There's a dimension, and I forget exactly how it goes. It has something to do with the length of the hoses that you fill your things up, so you can't be, your vehicle has to stay on the thing. If your hose was long, a longer hose, you'd have to potentially get off it. So our hoses, we're gonna replace them and put the most shortest possible ones on it. You know what I'm saying? Ones that are still functional.
Sure. Okay.
So that'll be all part of the thing, and come up with a dimension that's palatable. And again, it's just, you know, for town use. So that was the bad news about the pumps. I thought we were in good shape, and that was kind of a surprise.
Okay, thanks for the update on that, Jeff. The next thing on the agenda here for the mailboxes, State of New Hampshire District 5, notice of resurfacing updates various roads. Includes paver shim on Mansion Road, Winslow Road, and Jewett Road. So we have notification here at the town office, if anybody wants to look at that lives on those roads. Bob? So,
You didn't say Everett Dam Road.
No,
no,
You didn't say Stark Lane either.
no.
I figured Mansion, you might use that one.
Manson's got one good pothole on it, anyway, you seem to keep hitting it every time.
Only one?
Yeah.
Well, we gotta share them on our town meetings too.
Okay. Next thing on the mailbox items, we have a letter from the Dunbarton Conservation Commission. They had a public hearing held on May 11th, 2022. Comment was taken from the public, and the commission discussed and voted on the upgraded roads, situation for scenic Guile Hill Road. Because it was a scenic road, they had to have that public meeting. And they have some things here that they've given for suggestions, and consent. for improvements on that road, which Jeff discussed earlier, which Jeff is aware of. You have a copy of this letter, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, so the road agent has a copy of it, so this is a copy to keep at the town offices.
The planning board does as well.
Yeah, that's a copy, part of the planning board process for the Guile Hill Road that Jeff spoke about earlier.
And that was read into, so,
We have an entire folder up here, I suggest that the other selectmen take a look through it. These are field reports, there are 3 of them. Jeff Trexler's done an excellent job meeting on the site, getting all of the undergrounds, and all of the structural rebar and all the structural reinforcement into the old foundation for the town hall library addition. And, everything is going thumbs up, great, they're actually gonna, pour the top slab on there tomorrow. So the foundation is poured, and all the underground piping is in and been tested and inspected by Mike, and now they're gonna pour the top slab on top of there. And they're gonna start building, I believe, next week or early, after the holiday. We have an email here that we got from Chief Rumlard, Chris Rumlard, in reference to our radios. As you guys know, earlier in the year, we joined membership of the Central New Hampshire Special Operations Unit. And as part of that, operations unit, they have a full-time radio tech that goes around and checks out, the different towns' radios. They have updated us and given us 4 new radios, which cost thousands of dollars, for our department. And we thought there was issues with our radios, and it was actually issues, we couldn't get to some of the receiving on the north end of town, and it was from the equipment that's, up on Mount Uncanunic in Goffstown. So that being said, that, equipment is getting fixed, and we should have better service, and, overall, just this, little first thing that we've done with them is save the town all of our money of our membership right there, so that was well worthwhile, and the chief wanted us to know about it. We have a thank you letter here to sign, from the selectmen, for the donation of flags with kits to the town of Dunbarton, valued at $4,500. The town of Dunbarton Board of Selectmen would like to thank you for your donation, hard work, and undertaking flags around Dunbarton. Your enthusiasm to beautify the town received several words of approval, which you were instrumental in helping to accomplish. This is for Don Larson. So Mike, when you get in, you'll have to sign that.
Yep.
Next thing on the, agenda is an informational piece about the state of New Hampshire DOS rulemaking action to re-adopt with amended related to addressing fire safety violators. And the last thing in the mailbox item, we have some items that we consigned for St. James State Auction. Lee just received this, I think, today. And we get a total value of $2,214 back. We have some step ladders that went out, a couple of lawnmowers, waste oil tank, military trailer, some fire hose. So it looks like that, the 240-gallon waste oil tank, sold for $1,100, and the quarter-ton military trailer was $1,100 as well, so. They charged us 10% to sell them, so that was a good chunk of money. accept that?
No, it's just sale of properties.
Okay. All right, that's everything in that folder. Okay, that being said, I'm gonna bring it back to public comment. Nothing, right, nothing?
Yeah, you mentioned the auction. I get rid of the person most likely to strip the two dead cruises and,
Okay,
get ready for the auction, and I wasn't able to get them done in time for the auction.
that's okay, there's a fall one.
Yeah, well, it's sitting up on my property, so at some point I'm gonna wanna get them off there. So there's a couple of options, neither one of the cars is serviceable, they'll never get stickers. The old Mark Cruiser has a dead engine, it doesn't run. I didn't know if there was any thoughts about maybe just having that sold for scrap. That might be the cheapest way, if not, we'll have to tow it to some public place.
Yeah.
And it can be auctioned during the, off-season by the same auctioneers and, see what we get. We might do better with just a scrap. It's a 10-year-old vehicle with, 100,000 plus, I don't know what the mileage is, but it's pretty extensive. The engine is seized and it's got the wear and tear of 10 years, so, I just wanted to put the thought out there. It may be more efficient to just, send it out to scrap.
Have you ever scrapped one?
I personally haven't.
They do make you take all the fluids out, now they give you a huge list. But from what I've learned is if you just take and drain the oil and the gas, they're generally good with them, but they give you lists to go through the rear ends and front ends and windshield washer fluid, radiator fluid, but they don't hold you to that, but there is a little cost to scrapping it as well.
I've got a lot of time to strip it.
Okay.
But I just wanted to raise the issue, see if that was something that the board.
And what
might
about the
consider.
other one, you said there's two?
Yeah, the other one runs, so I can move it around,
Yeah.
and I haven't been able to strip that one yet,
Okay.
so.
All right, I guess, maybe once you get them both stripped, let us know, unless you wanna get that one off your property, then we can.
Well, yeah, I'd like to get it off this sometime within, before the summer.
Yeah.
That's all. There's no big rush for it, but,
Okay.
I would like to get it out someplace, and if we're gonna auction it, it just needs to be towed to someplace where people can come and look at it. Not that
Put
anyone's.
an auction on privately, have people put a bid on it or not?
We could, but it doesn't run, I hate to.
It's an exercise if you.
It's not roadworthy, so I hate to put us in any liability. Can you see how long before you could drop it off for the state auction, and if it's not running, if you can still drop it off? Go ahead, Joe.
You could just call a scrap company and
Yeah.
say, hey, listen, this is a vehicle we have, what can you give us for it?
Maybe another Eberts or something.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
They'll take you the fluids in it.
Take it just the way it is. I mean, I know the catalytic converters on them have a value, and they all seem to like that on them, if that's what I would imagine still on it. I don't know, maybe it's some value, so I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
When we
It
do,
might be an easy
when we do
thing.
one Hebert's is close, right, in Goffstown, we'll try them.
Yeah,
Mhm. You know, at least use the words of it, so.
and then just be done with it.
So one is ready now, you'll have
One is just about ready, it is, I'm still taking graphics off it, I've been picking away at,
Okay.
but I got the graphics on the roof that are really difficult to remove, if they're gonna just scrap it.
You can grind it. Yeah, or don't
Yeah,
worry about it.
yeah, I've been using gasoline and stuff, it's been a chore.
Yeah.
I got most of the equipment out, there's a couple more things I can just take out.
And that one, even though it's running, we don't auction off, we still scrap it.
No, we made an auction the other one off.
Yeah, the other one could get auctioned, it's not gonna pass inspection, the frame's rotted.
It's amazing how much we got on the Crown Vic. I mean, we get $7,000 out of it.
Well, if you needed to, get it off your property, you want to put a park it down the highway garage until the fall auction comes for the state.
I didn't wanna tie up your lock.
No, it'd be enough, the only thing is, we wanna make it go for winter, with the snow, but it can't. Good, seriously, you could bring it down there, and if it's sat there till the next auction around in Concord, then that would be fine.
I mean, even if you want to get rid of them, Dan, and work on them down there, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, when the first one, when the Mark one is ready to go, we can
Okay.
just
but like I said, after you get that done, if you wanna bring it down, I would
That'd be,
more welcome.
that'd be a good one for the tourists, the other one is not, it's not.
Yep.
Yep. So,
Okay.
you know, in theory, it might be easy, it might be cheaper if you don't have to tow it,
Yeah.
you know, just to have it removed.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the tow's expensive too, it's not scary.
Okay, any further public comment? Okay, that being said, I'll bring it back to the board. Lean, let's start with you.
I just have a couple of items, I'm sure the board is well aware that this has been a year for grant applications. The departments have all, been applying for smaller, grants. John Wigan provided me with 3 invoices that he had gotten quotes on that totaled, about $53,000, and recently the Gopher Grant Equipment, was opened up for, the fire department to enable them to get additional, equipment. He was awarded, $47,949, of which he said within his budget, he would have a 10% match, which is about $5,300, so he's, we received that letter today, and so he's notified the, companies that have given the quotes that he's committed to purchasing them or providing them with a commitment letter that they will, be purchased before the end of the year. So,
Okay.
good to go with that, which is, he's excited about. And then I just wanted to let the board know, and I'm sure you've heard a little bit about it, in the last 2 weeks, the town has received a lot of, complaints, through social media. And I'm sure, Justin, you might be able to speak on it some. And they're everything from mowing at the Dunbarton Elementary School, commercial trips, hauling, water from Grapevine, Road Pond, which was referred to the Conservation Commission, and then complaints about the number of trucks using Ray Road to get dirt to and from pit site.
What pond was it?
I can
It's
answer that.
actually.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, it's a pull-off where the fire hydrant is, and it's a
Oh, on Grapevine?
Grapevine.
Mike Poirier's, still on?
The contractor that's doing the road project at the end of Zachary asked me about getting water there. And I told him I had no problem with it, but we call the fire chief, because the fire chief has the hydrant, it's like a dry well manhole there. So I called John when I was there, John.
What's the manhole right in the cement?
Yeah, it's, on the side of the road, has a grate over it.
I was looking for one of them red pipes
No,
coming up.
I did, and it has a pipe
again?
that comes from the swamp, 12-inch pipe that comes into the manhole. They just pull the grate out and put a hose down in there. It doesn't have this stand pipe.
Okay.
So, that's what they did with water.
Okay.
They have the proper permission, I should say.
Yeah,
All
so,
right.
so this has come up in the past, where, the seed companies for hydro seeding were going into, Kimball Pond to get water, because we were low, it was a drought and whatnot, in the 2020. And the Fish and Game got involved, Conservation got involved, and each one of those, confirmed that it was allowed for these companies to go into these ponds, so. Whereas this one here, I think, has some, oversight by the Conservation Commission. I sent the complaint to, Brett St. Clair and George Holt to respond to them, because they were involved with the last complaint that we had as well.
But I guess they didn't just arbitrarily did it.
Yeah.
They asked me, I pointed them in the direction and talked to John,
So
because it was
John-
his structure.
Okay, so John gave the okay,
He
and,
didn't have any problem with this.
okay,
Does the conservation know that? So they
no,
don't-
but I will get that to them,
I really didn't think it was gonna be
yeah.
Facebook media highlight, to be honest with you.
That
Was
one,
that second?
that
I
one
haven't seen
came in,
that one.
oh, actually, was that one on Facebook? I think it was. It's been out.
I'd seen complaints about Ray Road and the number of trucks. There was a video posted about trucks going in and out of the dirt doctor's pit there.
So,
I mean, I don't. They have the proper permits, so I don't think there's anything we can do.
but they haven't complained to the office, the only one that called the office was the one about the water. But,
And that was an easy fix.
right, and it's.
Do you need to call them back and let them know that they did have permission?
I will,
wasn't his piece of property to give back to the,
Yeah.
along Fred
The,
first.
Ray Road, the dirt doctor, they running heavy trucks more than normal traffic will, so how's that gonna affect that road? If Jeff repaves it and stuff.
Well,
You're gonna contribute to rebuilding.
the,
For sure.
I was wondering how the entrance is holding up to that, I haven't been down there in a little while, but I did see a lot of dirt traffic coming out onto the road there. But, you know, like Justin said, when that got sold, that came to the board back then, and we thought that there might be more use than was in the past. Although, when you give them approval for that type of use, other than altering the hours, you can't really, calculate their trips in and out as long as they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and from what I've heard on the initial time when they were called, they were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing on the property itself, so. I can understand people not liking more trips, in front of their house, but I think that, that was part of that approval process. We didn't make them come in for re-permitting, cause it was supposed to be the same use as was going on there in the past. Although, I'm sure there's a lot more trips than had happened in the past.
It was more sporadic when Frank Merrill, the last owner of it, because they would, if they did a project in the area, like, for instance, they did a lot of work at the Concord Hospital, they'd bring extra materials from there out, so they'd be shorter blocks of time, and they would haul pretty regular hauls of gravel out, but then it might go months and you hardly see a truck. I think these guys are more of a, it's gonna be more of a routine, and I don't know what a lot of trucks is, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's 10 trips a day or 1,000 trips, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, you know, we thought there was a potential for that back, I think, when we looked at that,
Yes.
but, or of course, we didn't know.
And also, they had indicated, and still indicate that it's not a retail yard, it's just for processing.
Wholesale.
Yeah. Processing their own stuff, so they did say that they were gonna offer retail sales.
Bob, do you have something for that?
Well, unfortunately, when you have different pits around you, you're gonna see trucks. You
Yeah.
know, whatever Dan roads
Oh,
are.
lately it's been a
like right
highway.
now, you got the oddly trucks, you got a whole bunch of trucks coming steady. It's, I guess you gotta live with it, cause they have a right to use the road to get to their pits.
Just did.
And I've had several complaints about that too, the Oddly trucks going up and down, but I know Oddly had reached out. Same thing, it was all over Facebook that Oddly had reached out to person complaining about it.
Yeah, they,
Personally had called them, so.
the deal with the Oddly trucks are all into that new subdivision area being built out, there, so that's gonna have a short life.
Right,
Just so you know, those will
Right.
stop. The other trucks that are doing the job over on Zachary Drive, and they ran into a little problem, because they used, typically to go to that route, you would go out River Road and Ware to Route 77 and come down that way. But Ware closed the bridge on River Road at the north end to a 3-ton limit, so they can't go over the trucks anymore. So other than going way into 114 to Goffstown and way up that way, they've been cutting across.
see Mount
those.
Williams, their
Yeah.
trucks are
Yeah,
coming steady.
and we,
So it's
town
just-
does.
It's
but
just
we-
one of those things, I
Yeah,
mean,
so some of this truck traffic that is increased dramatically on that particular road is short-lived, it will come to an end, but again, you know, the regulars and the people that do work in town here, and us, in the town itself, I mean, that's the route to get there, unfortunately.
hey, it doesn't bother me, I don't think it bothers the neighbors.
Okay, you got anything further since you started that? And
Just,
you're good, Lane?
I'm all set.
Okay, Mike, do you have anything, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I think it's, I just, on those trucks on public roads, I mean, it is a public road. They have every right as anyone else to traverse a public road.
Yeah, they pay large registrations for those big trucks too,
Yeah.
so.
I do have one.
And, you know, I don't like the trucks, I don't like the town trucks on my road. I have to live with it. That's just life.
Okay,
Can I just bring up one more item?
I guess Lean wants to come back, but we got a letter?
Yes.
All right.
You
I
don't want to see it.
may have to close the office early tomorrow, cause there's no office staff, I've already, we've had some things come in, things happen where the staff is not
wants to start her holiday early, Mike.
Well, we gotta think about that.
I have put my hours in for the week,
Talk
so
about
I'm
for
not
the
shorting
next
the town at all.
Okay, thanks for letting us know about that. Mike, you good?
Yeah, just make sure there's a notification on the outside of the door that will close due to staffing. Maybe put a sign up there, someone who comes mostly on in.
Okay, I will, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's it. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting at, what is that, 8:25?
A second.
Huh?
You don't have anything?
Absolutely, you guys will warm me out now. No, we already did the update on the town hall until I started